My beloved brothers and sisters, let me begin with a question. Have you ever walked away from an argument not because you were defeated, but because you valued your peace more than your pride? In a world where voices are constantly raised and opinions shouted from every corner, where every disagreement turns into a debate and every conversation becomes a contest, silence is no longer seen as strength, it is mistaken for weakness. But the truth, dear brothers and sisters, is that silence, when chosen with wisdom, is one of the most powerful tools a believer can hold. Every single day we are faced with situations that test our patience, our character, and our ability to remain composed. Sometimes these tests come in the form of words thrown at us, hurtful words, false accusations, sarcastic comments, unnecessary criticism. And in those moments, what we choose to say or not say can determine the course of not just our day, but our peace, our relationships, and even our hereafter. It is in these moments that silence becomes more than just a pause in speech. It becomes a statement, a powerful act of restraint, a form of worship, a shield. Your silence today may be your protection tomorrow. That is not just a poetic line, it is a life-saving principle. How many times have people spoken in anger or haste only to regret it later? How many arguments were prolonged because someone couldn't hold back a single word? How many friendships were broken, marriages destroyed, families torn apart not by actions but by words? And then how many people found themselves wishing they had simply remained silent? How many found themselves in difficulty, not because they didn't speak, but because they did? The reality is that every word we utter is recorded. Every statement becomes part of our story. Sometimes people try to provoke us, they want to drag us into their chaos, their drama, their anger. And the moment you respond, you've already stepped into their battlefield. But when you remain silent, when you walk away without lowering yourself, that silence becomes your strength. You don't need to win every argument, you don't need to prove your point to every person, because when your heart is at peace with your Lord, you do not crave the validation of the people. There are times when you are completely right, when you are being wronged, but you remain silent, not because you don't know how to speak, not because you don't have proof, but because you know that your silence places your matter in the hands of the one who never sleeps, who never forgets, who never delays justice. Your silence is not weakness. It is a loud declaration that you trust your Lord more than your own voice. When we read the stories of the righteous before us, we find that many of them endured severe trials, accusations, and slander, yet they chose silence over confrontation. Why? Because they understood that not all battles are meant to be fought with words. Some are fought with patience, some are won through character, some are left to the Lord of the worlds to settle. There are people who speak about you behind your back, let them. The angels are writing. There are people who judge you based on one moment, one mistake, one misunderstanding, let them. Your Creator knows your heart. There are people who twist your silence into guilt. Let them. You are not accountable for what others assume, you are only accountable for what you say and do. When a person wrongs you, the natural reaction is to respond, to clarify, to defend, to explain. But ask yourself, is it worth it? Will your response bring peace or more confusion? Will it resolve the matter or add fuel to the fire? Sometimes silence is more effective than 1,000 words. It teaches, it stuns, it diffuses. And most importantly, it protects you from sin, from pride, from regret. When someone shouts at you, insults you, and you remain calm, they expect a reaction. When it doesn't come, they are left with their own noise. Your silence reflects your strength. You have chosen not to lower yourself. You have chosen not to let their words control your mood, your peace, your soul. That is not just maturity, it is strength of the highest order. There are moments in life when silence becomes your best friend. When you are too hurt to speak, too wise to argue, too tired to explain, in those moments allow your silence to do what your words cannot. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to say nothing and let your character speak, let your patience shine, let your dignity do the talking. Our time on this earth is limited. Our energy is precious. Why waste it trying to explain yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you? Why lose your peace trying to win a debate that brings no benefit? Your silence may not be understood today, but tomorrow, when the truth becomes clear, when the dust settles, your silence will stand as a mark of your strength. And those who once mocked your quietness will admire your self-control. Many of us carry the scars of words spoken to us in anger, parents to children, spouses to one another, friends, colleagues, and those words, though they only took seconds to say, took years to heal. If only we knew the power of silence in such moments. Silence would have saved us from wounds. Silence would have saved us from guilt. Silence would have saved our relationships. Think about it, how many times have you wished you had stayed silent in anger, in frustration, in jealousy, in pride? How many times did you wish you had paused, reflected, and just walked away? That is why we must train ourselves. Silence is not automaticity, is a discipline. It requires self-awareness, it requires humility, it requires wisdom. We must learn that not every moment demands our voice. Not every thought deserves to be shared. Not every opinion needs to be heard. There is power in knowing when to speak, and greater power in knowing when not to. The one who learns this has already won half of life's battles. And now, my dear brothers and sisters, reflect on this. Not every battle requires your voice. Some are won with patience. Life is not a series of arguments to be won. Life is a journey of growth, of service, of peace. What benefit is there in winning a debate if you lose a relationship? What benefit is there in silencing someone else with your voice if you lose your own inner calm? Sometimes walking away is not giving up, it is rising above. Our ego often tricks us into believing that if we stay silent, we are being weak. But in reality, silence requires more strength than shouting ever will. The strongest people are not those who speak the loudest, but those who speak the wisest stand. Sometimes that wisdom tells them, say nothing. A person once said something beautiful. If you speak when you're angry, you'll make the best speech you'll ever regret. Think about that. How often do we say things in the heat of the moment and then spend days, months, or even years trying to undo the damage? Words once spoken cannot be taken back, but silence? Silence never needs apology. It never requires repair. When you respond to every provocation, you make yourself vulnerable. But when you stay silent, you remain in control. Silence keeps you calm. Silence keeps you focused. Silence keeps you protected. People will wonder what you're thinking. They may assume wrongly, but your silence will shield you from sin, from arguments, from unnecessary drama. There's a time to speak. Yes, but that speech must be meaningful. It must be rooted in benefit. Speak when your words can heal, guide, uplift, clarify, protect. Speak when your silence may lead to injustice, but when speaking adds no value, or when it may spark harm, it is better to remain silent and leave the matter to the one who sees everything. Imagine two people arguing in public. One is shouting, pointing fingers, blaming. The other is calm, composed, silent. Who looks stronger? Who looks wiser? Who holds the dignity? The one who is silent. Because strength is not in how loud your voice is, it's in how deep your peace is. There's something deeply spiritual about silence. It teaches you reliance. It teaches you trust. It makes you reflect. Sometimes we speak too quickly because we fear people will misunderstand us. But if your intention is clear, if your heart is clean, if your Lord is pleased, then let them misunderstand, let them assume, let them talk, because He knows, and that's enough. There are moments when silence is louder than any argument. It is more powerful than any comeback. It is more graceful than any statement. You don't always need to tell people who you are. Your character, your consistency, your silence in the face of chaos will tell your story far better than your words ever could. And sometimes silence is not just about avoiding conflict, it's about creating space for understanding. When someone is angry, emotional, or unreasonable, your silence can be the pause that prevents escalation. It can give them room to calm down, to reflect, to return to a place of reason. You don't have to match their energy, you just have to hold yours. Silence also gives us the ability to listen. And when we listen, we learn, we grow, we understand. The person who always speaks rarely hears, but the one who listens gains perspective. Silence allows you to absorb, to see the bigger picture, to respond with wisdom rather than reaction. One of the most overlooked qualities in life today is silence. Not the kind of silence that stems from fear or oppression, but the kind that comes from wisdom, strength, and a connection to your Creator. In a world that pushes us to speak quickly, argue loudly, and express every emotion without reflection, silence has become a rare treasure. And yet, it is one of the clearest signs that a person understands their purpose and has disciplined their heart. Because the one who has tamed their heart automatically tames their tongue. When the heart is filled with the remembrance of the Almighty, it doesn't feel the need to constantly be heard. It doesn't rush to respond to every insult, every opinion, every conversation. It learns to value silence not as emptiness, but as a place of deep reflection and connection. A tongue under control is not just a sign of good manners, it is a mirror of the soul. When you see someone who speaks with wisdom, who knows when to pause, when to remain quiet, when to choose their words carefully, you are witnessing someone who has worked on their heart. Because the tongue is merely the translator of what lies within. A corrupted heart will produce reckless words, sarcasm, lies, and harsh speech. But a clean heart, a heart that remembers the Almighty often, a heart that is conscious of accountability, will never allow the tongue to run wild. Think of how many times we speak without thinking. A small comment, a rude remark, a joke taken too far, a backbiting sentence, and yet these words, no matter how small they feel in the moment, are written and recorded. They carry consequences. The person who controls their speech is someone who understands the weight of their words. They don't speak unless they know there's benefit. They don't joke if it risks hurting someone's feelings. They don't respond to every criticism, because their validation comes from their relationship with their Lord, not the approval of people. When the tongue is left unchecked, it can destroy everything. Families have broken due to words, marriages have collapsed due to uncontrolled speech, friendships have ended because someone didn't think before they spoke, and yet the opposite is true relationships have been healed by kind words, a sincere apology, a soft tone. The same tongue that can destroy also has the power to build, to uplift, to soothe. So the question we must ask ourselves is, are we using our tongues to please the Almighty or to please our egos? The one who is conscious of the Almighty doesn't just think about what they say, they think about how they say it, when they say it, and why they say it. Sometimes the truth must be spoken, yes, but even truth without wisdom becomes a weapon. A wise person knows how to deliver truth with mercy. They choose silence when words may cause harm. They refrain from speaking even when they have the perfect comeback, because they know that silence can be more powerful than speech. When you sit with the righteous, you'll notice something amazing. They speak less, but their words carry more. They don't fill the space with idle chatter. They reflect before responding. They weigh their words carefully. Why? Because they've disciplined their souls. They understand that every word is either for them or against them. They choose to speak when it brings goodness and remain silent when there's no benefit. That's not weakness, that's spiritual maturity. Sometimes people believe that silence means you have nothing to say, but in reality, silence often means you're thinking deeply. It means you're giving the moment its due respect. It means you value the listener. And more than anything, it means you value your own peace. Not everything needs a reaction. Not every comment needs a reply. Not every insult deserves your voice. When your heart is at peace, you don't seek to win every debate. You seek to win the pleasure of your Lord. Silence can be a means of worship. It can protect you from backbiting. It can save you from lying. It can prevent unnecessary arguments. It can shield you from arrogance. And it allows you the space to engage in remembrance instead. A person who chooses silence often fills that space with reflection, with gratitude, with prayer. Their heart begins to absorb peace. And that peace is visible in how they carry themselves, how they speak, and how they treat others. And remember, when the heart is connected to the Almighty, it finds no pleasure in hurting other seven through words. It finds no joy in gossip, no delight in slander, no satisfaction in putting people down. Instead, it becomes a heart that carries others, that speaks with kindness, that uplifts through speech. And when that is impossible, it chooses silence over harm.